What's going on, community? It's another episode here on YouTube where it's insights and interviews for the disruptive educator. I have esteemed guests, and we're going to be talking about mental health in schools. A very important conversation, and we'll see you on the next side. What's going on, good brother?
What's good? How you doing?
Listen, man, I'm excited to have you on and to have this conversation. But for those who may not have been so lucky as to meet you and be introduced to you, why don't you tell people who you are, what you do, and why you do it?
My name is Arron Muller, aka the Black Therapist. I am a licensed clinical social worker from New York City. I'm also a school social worker, adjunct professor, and CEO of Modified Wellness, which is my nonprofit, which I do a lot of work around mental wellness and education for companies and organizations and individual counseling as well.
That's awesome, brother. That's awesome. Um, I couldn't think of anyone better to have this conversation with. Just being introduced to your work and kind of seeing the things that you're a part of. Um, I figure I put all my cards on the table to begin, and then we can dive in. We are on this group of students who I have the honor of leading in seventh and eighth grade with, along with my team of administrators. We're seeing so many things in schools that have been now on the hinges of the last 3 years of just interrupted education, right? Um, and that's not even to say that it's been functioning the way it should be from the start. So we're talking about an interruption that has made quite a big dent in how we're seeing each other, how kids are seeing themselves, and the numbers don't even lie, right? So before I pulled you up, I was like, man, let me just get those hard facts again, right? So I'm reading this straight off of the Hunt Institute, and it says that the mental health ER visits rose 24% in children for ages 5 to 11 and 31% in children ages 12 to 17, right? So there seems to be a crisis on our hands, and there seems to be um, almost like a call to how we answer mental health in schools. And so I would love for you to just kind of speak to uh, what you're seeing on your end, especially with your work. And are we in the midst of a mental health crisis that we're maybe not tackling as well as we could?
Well, to answer your second question, we're not, it's not approaching. We are in the midst of a mental health crisis. Certainly, the pandemic. I mean, I think things were going on prior to, but it definitely like that sent us over the edge in terms of just uh just unknown territory. Like no one ever experienced anything like this before. Just the tremendous loss, isolation, just so many things happening. Like you didn't know if you were going to be next. Like that does something to someone. Children lost relatives and loved ones, and when you have loss, that's something that's very significant. Um, Not seeing their teachers, not seeing their administrators, not seeing their familiar place where they would go to every day. That was also a tremendous loss for a lot of students. School is their safe haven. School is their consistency in a consistent world, whether it be just transitioning from place to place because of housing issues and things like that. So with the absence of not having school and not having that school crossing guard or that teacher or that guidance counselor every day, um, kids truly suffered. And for adults, it was difficult to navigate. So imagine children who are still trying to navigate and find their way and still don't have all the skills, uh, 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 available to them yet to be able to articulate and navigate feelings. So it has been quite a ride for our children. As educators, it's important that we remember that as they transition back into school, it is not just because their back, that they should be able to bounce back. While children are resilient, do need to understand that there's a ripple effect. There's going to be some the aftershocks of what we experience, and we're going to see that now, for some time, whether it be the disparity in terms of education, in terms of learning, right? So
Hmm.
some disruption in learning now. They were excelling before, and now they can't concentrate now. Students who already had challenges have even more challenges because learning through virtually doesn't work for everyone. So now children we try to have to bridge those gaps, and now with financial hit that some schools have are taking. So what if you don't have the resources to gaps as well? So these are the challenges.
Yeah, I mean, in a very real way, I see it. Um, and it's a very interesting space, right? So, like, I'm on day 22 of being an assistant principal, and I only say that to say, like, my lens as an educator, I do my best to try to see as much as possible the heart of my students, kind of root causes, and things like that. And what's winding up happening is I'll see students who are termed disruptive in class, but it's really because of a perceived deficiency in their learning. And so I'd rather tear this thing up than to have
Right,
to face the inadequacy that I see in myself. Right. I see students
right,
who are failing to connect with one another. And so then there's conflict. Right. And so when all these things happen, then I look at the ways in which education is kind of formed. And what we have in our toolkit seems to be punitive actions that don't necessarily address the cause in our heads and in our hearts. So I guess my question then would be, what kind of reframes, retooling should we, in your opinion, be doing in schools to begin to help this crisis that we're in?
well, one thing for sure is supporting the team. So whatever that looks like in your districts, because the teachers they have their job that they have, right? So it's kind of just how can I get this child to learn, and then also understanding that this child are coming with different challenges. So how do you meet those needs? And that's, I guess, supporting the teachers whatever way they can. So how is your social emotional team providing support? What is the plan if a child is showing a challenge? Do they come into the classroom, pull them out, possibly, talk to them for a minute, then bring them back in, try to minimize the disruption for the entire class, right? So finding those ways, creating an action plan, action plan to support those students. And then I think prior to that is identifying what are some of the students that that be presented with challenges, and what are supports you have in place for those. Have tier one, tier two, tier three approach. So those students, maybe all the students would be in tier one, and then tier
Yep.
two, what are those students that need a little bit of extra? And then tier three, what is those that really need that really intentional support, whether it be individual, maybe referral to outside source, maybe a mentor from somebody, in the school, kind of checking in with them and that little buddy system, something going like that. So one, first actually know your students by identifying who needs support and where.
I, now, that part right there, really knowing your students is like, that can't be overstated, right? Because in especially in education, as teachers, staff, whatever position you're in, we're always on a time crunch. And because we're always on a time crunch, we don't have the time to invest in people. So we want to get to what's the information that I have to know about you as quickly as possible so I can get to the mandates I've been given, the targets or the
Right.
goals that I've been given. And so it no longer becomes about really knowing you intricately and knowing what really makes you go and makes you tick or what makes you, come alive in the classroom. It becomes, I need to get like the cliff notes to you as quickly as possible. And sometimes in that process, we see teachers and students really combat. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I literally, you know, at a district that will remain nameless, uh, saw a situation where a a teacher is is in a dysregulated state. She is upset at the behavior she's seeing. Um, and because she's responding to the ways in which these students are behaving in the manner she's doing it, it's almost like gasoline, fire, or a match, and they are just coming together and it is imploding. And so now I get called in to try to put out the flames. And it's like, well, how did the fire get so big to begin with? Right. And I think sometimes we
Right.
as educators don't take the step back to realize like a dysregulated adult cannot regulate children. It just can't happen.
Absolutely. Right. Right.
So, so could you speak to us as educators? What are some things like that we need to make sure is in our toolkit for ourselves before we can even, how do we put the mask on ourselves to use the analogy before we could put it on someone else? What are some of the things we need to be thinking through?
Well, I know certainly, we encourage the teachers to ensure that they are having their self-care moments, that they are taking care of themselves, because we know the importance of that. In order to pour into others, you have to be poured into yourself. So we're encouraging that. It's also important that they feel support from administration, that they feel that is a safe environment, and that they feel supported. Um, So whatever that looks like, I know it's difficult and everybody's not going to be happy, but that those environments where they feel heard and feel understood, they're more inclined to want to, um, whether it be, whether it be just administrative, right? Because they still have a role to do, not only teach, but they still have deadlines and things to meet like that. And when the environment feels like supportive, more inclined to take initiative and compliance and things of that nature, less call outs, less burnout, all of that. We know how it's important in terms of just function at a job altogether, coupled with students now, and having to engage with not only students but parents as well. So it's like a triple compound for teachers. It's right. It's not just performing your job and that's it, right? It's so many different angles. I was like, I got to give it to educators. I used to say that all the time. I'll never be a teacher. I was like, I don't know how y'all do it. I could never be a teacher. And now here I am teaching at the college level.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I guess you got to be careful what you say. But yeah, it's not an easy thing. So it's really one, taking care of yourself, and second is try to find what you need. How can you express to your administrator what are some things that you need in order to function and do your job well?
Yeah.
Is it actual tangible things, or is it systems? Like, is there a policy where you can kind of provide suggestions on systems that could potentially benefit the entire school in terms of functioning better? Um, Three is getting to know your students also, like um, asking them how they're doing, creating those social emotional spaces in the classroom where you do these check-ins before you start your day. Um, Said everybody, hey, how was your, maybe get one thought-provoking question to get kind of their thoughts going before they start learning, because that'll give you an indicator of maybe a measure of how they're feeling today. So if you know that this student said, I really had a rough night last night, or I didn't get lunch. I mean, I didn't get dinner last night. That might indicate how the day is going to be. maybe they'd be less attentive. Maybe they won't be able to focus. Maybe they have their head down. Or I didn't sleep at home last night because I don't have a place to stay. If you don't know that information, now you're operating from a place of not knowing. How would that, kind of impact the day? Now you're expecting Johnny to be attentive, focused, sitting still for 6.5 hours a day. Meanwhile, he didn't have lunch or dinner yesterday, or he didn't have a place to sleep last night. That changed the trajectory of how you engage with him, and the trajectory of his day, just from having that information. And now you can operate differently. Now you can possibly send him down to get something to eat, to breakfast, be more mindful in your approach. Like, it really calls as a call to action to how you think differently. You know, with men, and I can't fault you can't fault teachers because they've been given mandates. They've been given a role. You have to get this done. Produce, produce, produce by any means necessary. We don't care. What do you expect?
Yeah,
So we have to
absolutely.
so you have to acknowledge that. So I think it's also important. While mandates are important, while we know we all have a job to do, we all want productivity. I think also sensitivity to that these are human beings, the teachers included, the students are human beings as well, right? So we're looking for this qualitative data, and we leave out all the quantitative data. Excuse me, they want quantitative, right? There's just numbers, but
They
there's
want
something that
numbers.
comes with it, right? But there's the story that comes with it, and that's where the qualitative data comes in. But we don't pay attention to the qualitative. But everybody has a story. But if the teacher could get more support in understanding the why, then we can operate differently and get to teach those students based off of their why. Now you have an understanding. So
Yeah.
if you're dealing with a student that's maybe disruptive, a little impulsive, it
Hmm.
may not be ADHD.
Mm,
It's important to know that the staff know about trauma brain and how that affects a child. It may
mm.
mirror ADHD symptoms, right? So they're not just being disruptive. They're not just calling out for, like, literally their brain has been rewired.
Mm. Now, you just dropped something. So I need us to pause for people who are coming in and may have tapped into uh this recording and said, "Listen, all right, you just said trauma brain, and my district has diagnoses of ADHD or whatever have you, and we know based off of numbers that students who look like you or I are going to be placed into special education programs and given 504s and given IEPs at higher rates than our white counterparts, than other counterparts in our world, other racial groups.
Right.
So then what is trauma brain, and how can a educator find out more information regarding it?
But one thing is definitely, you could definitely look it up if you just really just research what trauma brain is. But I mean, that's the first thing. But I think districts should
Google
really,
is free.
right. But a lot of people don't know about it. A lot of people don't know about it. So
Right.
one thing is that, administrators who are watching is like, how can you have these conversations? How you can have trainings on this with your staff, because it mirror 80. I mean, I know this because I'm a clinician, but I think it's important for administration and educators to know about it as well, because our black children, specifically black boys, are diagnosed with ADHD, and then when they get older, they're quickly diagnosed with bipolar and schizophrenia as well. So our children, black children, are often misdiagnosed. Um, so it's important that we have cultural competent and cultural aware and just people of color that are in these positions also, because it's important to take those things into account when you're doing the history of a child, or just knowing their story, know what they've been through.
Yeah.
because that could give you a clearer lens, not just from the behavioral patterns, but from the family history as well. You can see that maybe there's history of just something traumatic that happened. It's not, could be a loss, right? It could be a loss of a loved one. It could be fire. It could be many things that are just continuous trauma after other, and it really rewires your brain. So your brain, they say the body keeps score. Absolutely, it does. So now your
Mm,
children may now the child may demonstrate a little bit more hypervigilancy in class and quickly, maybe quick to anger and a little more impulsive. You're like, please sit down, sit down, sit down. And without the proper investigation and proper exploration by the staff, it's like, okay, this child's ADHD. Let's get her on medication. Um, Instead of getting to understand them and how the child with trauma works and how trauma informed care is so important. Not
yes.
not just in hospitals, but in schools as well. So you operate differently as opposed to why you do this. It's tell me what happened to you, and that I think about that more. Um, Being in education for quite some time, I rethink when I'm thinking, how can I respond to this child? I'm thinking, what happened? Why are you
Mm,
responding this way? That changes the way you respond.
yeah,
That changes the way
absolutely.
you respond.
Absolutely. And I think we get on our students, particularly in black and brown communities, when there seems to be um, this understanding of what it is to be tough. I ain't no snitch, and these types of things. We'll critique those things, but in the same breath, we'll be the same educators, and sometimes we're black and brown, like keep it 100, and we'll be sitting in front of them, and we feel like we have to flex our power because we're not going to lose no battle to no kid, instead of the understanding of I want to get to the end result. I want to get to how do we solve this, right? It becomes less about the solution, less about how do we move forward, less about healing, and more about winning the contest, and then we lose each other, right? I
Yeah.
see it happen all the time where a student will come in, they blow up and say something. I got to deal with the perceived disrespect. And so, because I got to deal with the perceived disrespect, I don't ever get to why the student felt like they needed to say what they said or do what they did. We don't get to the solution because I got to deal with the behavior and not the antecedent to that behavior.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But on the other side of the coin as well, what I also see,
Hmm.
and this is where I, you know, parents as well.
Okay.
You're raising your child for the world. It's
Mm.
important how you model how they conduct themselves as well. So when you give them the green light to be disrespectful as well to
Mm.
administration and to the educators, that's not also not cool. You understand what I'm saying? Like you also want to model how your child should engage in public because you're raising them for the world. This is your child, but you are ultimately raising them so they can take care of themselves and be self-sustainable.
Yes.
And thinking that the world is your oyster, that you can say anything to anybody is not going to fly either. You understand what I'm saying? So it's a double-sided coin where teachers are also respectable, parents are also respectable, and understand that is a village. But oftentimes parents may feel that the teacher is singling them out, don't like them, and it creates this very, very unhealthy environment for everybody. You understand?
Absolutely.
It'd be a great experience where is that relationship. My child's teacher has my best interest at heart. You know, and I think oftentimes some teachers may feel unappreciated or feel that they don't feel understood or heard or they've just been cursed out by parents so many times. And there's some parents that legitimately, some teachers, because of whatever experience they've been going through, also may feel that their child is being targeted as well. So I feel like everybody has equal share in terms of how they feel. But I'm
Yeah.
coming from a solution based. It's like, what
Yeah.
do we do with that? How can we improve that so that it's a conducive learning environment? Because you're sending a child here. So where I want my child to be, I want to feel safe and secure that they're good throughout the day. You understand what I'm
Abs-
saying? So
absolutely.
so
Absolutely. Good.
it's important that you feel that where your child is going to be, your most prized child that you're raising, that you feel that they're in a supportive environment where they are taken care of and nurtured and understood and respected. If you don't feel that about your child's institution, you may want to rethink where you have them, because that could possibly be why you're responding to your child's teacher that way. If you do not feel that it's the best place
Yeah.
for them, then you, I know it may be convenient, it may be on your way to work, maybe downstairs from your job, but is that the best place for them to be? Because your response is going to dictate that child's experience with that teacher.
That is spot on. And I think that tension that you bring up for us is key, because what winds up happening is the teachers are saying these parents don't, or these parents won't, or
Right.
these kids won't. The kids are saying this teacher, or is my kids be like, they're blowing my stuff. They always on me. They stay on, and then they'll put some other things in there, and I have to talk to them about their language. But this those are the things that they say, and then the parents are like, you know, they're on the defense because it's like, I want to believe my kid, and now I got to come in here and raise all kinds of whatever to get to the bottom of what's been going on. And it seems like, rather than, my grandma used to always tell me, boy, when you point a finger, you got three pointing back at you. And she was to always tell me that, because yeah, you can always point a finger at what somebody else is doing, but are you asking yourself how you contributed? Are you growing in your self-awareness? And it seems like based off of what you're talking about and what I'm experiencing, I'm sure even what you're experiencing in your educational experiences, there's a lack of self-awareness that says, man, I could have done this better. I could have
Right.
responded differently, or I could have raised this child, or I could have tweaked my child's behavior by addressing these issues or helping to prepare them for multiple areas that they're going to be in. I could have taught this child better or responded to their behavior better. And no one's saying like, yo, I could have, and leading with that. They're always leading with you should have.
But who want to hold themselves accountable for real? Like for real, who really going to say it was my fault? It was I could have done better. Who really is that self aware? Is going to say, you know what, you're right. I could have did. Nope, nobody's doing that. I'm gonna say nobody, but that very rarely happens where people could say, you know what, let me take accountability
Yeah.
for my part that I play with that. Very rare do you have that insight. It's everybody else's problem. So it's my child or that teacher or that student, and there's not
Yeah.
like. And there's some cases where legit it really is just the other person really tried their best.
Yeah.
But in most, what I'm saying, but the majority of the time is equal opportunities. Both parts, both people playing a part in a miscommunication or something blowing up out of control. Do I have the absolute answer to it? Absolutely not, because I feel like there's so many factors in place
Absolutely.
that plays a role in that. Whether it be not enough staff, so now people are doing 10 and 15 positions. So how can you be intentional about getting to know someone when you're doing lunch duty, but pick up, drop off, whatever, like you're doing so many multiple things. So how can you you know be self-aware and be intentional when you're being pulled in so many different directions? So I feel
Yeah.
like there's no like one answer solution
Yeah.
that's going to fit everybody. But I do know like there's some little things that you can do, like a little, put a little here, put a little there, whether it be having those tiered to know who the students are and what the supports in place. And then, how can you also have staff development for the teachers and show an appreciation for them. So, kind of alleviate some of that stress that comes with that. There's a lot of ways to kind of help people to feel supported. And it's not just about money in terms of you can't give everybody raises, but just like administration showing that they understand and feel supported. That doesn't cost you anything.
And that's a word right there. It's there are things that we could do for free that would help alleviate a lot of the things that we're experiencing. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And also the culture, like what is the culture of the school, right? Is it inclusive? Is parents involved? Do they have trust in the school? Did Can they just come to administration and express their feelings? You know that the parents on a first name basis, where they can say, you know what, Bobby, I have, or Mr. M, I really had an issue with, and I don't know what's going on. I just want to, and you're like, no, I'm gonna check into this. This is what happened. You understand? Like creating that relationship, that
Yeah.
not just for parent teacher nights, but whether it be sipping tea with Mr. B, something like that, where they come in and meet you and they have one on one. You know what I'm saying? Like creating those type of environments where the teachers, the parents can come together and have a conversation. It's like, um, I know my child and I know what he did. So I believe, I understand Mr. B, why you did that or like that, because I know my child. Like it takes on a different relationship where
Yeah.
teachers and the parents collaborate and kind of have that school spirit.
Yeah, absolutely. I found in in my short journey that a parent could come in and be really, really defensive to begin with, and then they meet me and they're like, "Oh, you did all that for my kid before you even called me?" Yeah, yeah, I did all that, and I'll continue to do all of that. And oh, you're talking to my kid like they're a human? Yeah, because they are, and I believe it.
Right.
And then all the anger that once was there becomes, yeah, I know my kid. They probably
Right.
said this, 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 and this. Yeah, I know my
Right.
kid. They probably did X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, cool. How can we repair this harm now? How can we work together to make this happen? And what once could have been a contentious situation becomes a bridge building activity together because they realize I'm not against you. I'm for you. Um,
Right.
and that positioning, I think, takes levels of understanding, uh, a willingness to kind of forgo the immediacy of this is why I was right versus let me understand where you're coming from. Um, and I think that is part and parcel of why we need to continue to bridge the gap between the school and the community, especially when we're talking about uh, the mental health crisis that we are in. Uh, I want to switch gears just for a little bit as we round out. I want to honor your time, um, but I want to ask you about one your journey, right? A little bit here as you engage in you know all the things of social work. Like, was this always where you wanted to be? Like, what kind of guided that process? If you could think about your schooling and things like that, like, how did you get here?
How did I get it? One, I definitely say that I was this calling was what I listened to. Like
Yeah,
I wanted to own car. I want to own a car dealership. Like I was going to be on a car dealership. I'm good. That's where I wanted to be.
yeah,
Um, I, I I graduated with my bachelor's in sociology from Queens College, and I really enjoyed it. And then I started working at a drug treatment program. So I was like 24, working at a drug treatment program. I had like 60 or 70 clients, and I'm doing counseling with um, opiate addiction. Um, and I really wanted to improve my clinical skills. And then, so I let me go back to school to get my master's in social work. And then in these classes, I'm like, wow, I'm looking around. I'm like, there's not a lot of black people in these courses. And I'm the only black dude in these courses. And
mm,
I'm like, and I'm just learning about like, I'm like, between the addiction, working in addiction and taking these courses, I'm like, mental health is really important. And I'm like, yo, and this is, I'm talking to myself. I'm like,
yeah,
I'm about to change the game of mental health. I
mm,
said, yeah. I was like, yeah, and it's a real story. I said, yo, I'm gonna be on TV. I said, I'm gonna go on radio talking about it. I said, yeah. I said, that's what I'm gonna do. I spoke and I talked to myself. I said, yo, I'm going to change game of mental health. I want people to see that they could be a black male therapist out
Mm.
there, and you don't have to. You could just be yourself. You know, 'cause I wear regular clothes. I don't do suit and ties and stuff like that.
Okay.
And I said, yeah. I said that's what I'm gonna do, and
When
that's what I did. That's what I did. I have a strong faith, and you know what I'm saying, I know it's only God that brought me this far, because I'm a pretty shy person. I'm not a talker like that. I don't really, yeah, I don't be out there like that. I be chilling. So to be in the positions that I've been in, I'm like, it can't be me. It's not me.
gotta be God. Yeah,
But
yeah. So let's say let's say you we jumped in a time machine right now and we went ahead 30, 40 years and you're looking back over your career and you're looking at all the things the black therapist has done. What will be the markers for you to let you know what, I did change the game. I did do what I set out to do.
what, just getting messages from people, or people when I'm walking down the street, like, because of you, I decided to go to therapy,
Mm, mm,
or something you said, or that post,
yeah.
or when I saw you on that TV show. It really, I was like, wow, there's a black therapist. So
Mm,
that alone for me is like, wow, that was it.
yeah. Yeah, I think about the work you do, even like personally, right? So like for me, even as I sit here and talk about the mental health crisis and what I'm seeing in my students, like I know I need therapy. I'm searching, right? Like I'm looking, but you got to make sure all these things line up and it's harder to get access and you want to be understood. So you want somebody who's not just, you know, culturally um inept. You want somebody who's culturally proficient, right? Who
Right, right.
understands where you're coming from and understands what you're going through. Um, and so I say that to say, like, I applaud the work you're doing because I know it's real, it's relevant, it's timely, it's needed, um, and it can ultimately change generations for us, for people who look like you and me.
It is. It can.
Um,
Absolutely can. And just from going, and I tell, like, the generation now that I see now that talks about like their parents and stuff, in terms of like, my parent want to know why I'm in therapy and stuff like that. And just, I applaud them for being trailblazers, right? For creating that change, shifting the narrative in their families. It's not easy to do, but it's super important. And just a sidebar, I started a Facebook group with called Black Male Therapists. It's just for Black male therapists. I have over 800 Black male therapists, so we could talk offline if I need to connect you with somebody.
Please and thank you. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely.
yeah,
Um, so I wanna do three things as we round out our time. Uh, First, and I kind of did it earlier just now, but I want to make sure, like for me, I think it's huge. Every person that I connect with and I bring on and want to talk to, it is because they've made an impact on me personally, and I see how they move and what they do, and I think that it is important to highlight. For me, it's always collaboration over competition. Like there's so much out here for all of us to be able to do all the things we want to do and connect and push each other higher, right? And so I see the grind, I see the passion that you have for this. Uh, this was like a long time coming. Like we were messaging each other, then we fell
right,
off, and then it came back, and then
right, right.
so it's for it to be here and to actually get the opportunity to talk to you about these things and to see the growth and impact that you've had over that time. I think is huge. People are resonating with it. Like your platform is continuing to grow because you have a message that is resonating and is needed. And so I just want to encourage you, brother, keep going, keep doing what you're doing. And, for me, you're only going to get support and love on this side. If there's anything I can do to
I
amplify,
appreciate it.
is absolutely what's needed for our community. So I want to applaud your work. Absolutely.
Well, I
Absolutely.
appreciate that.
Yeah, man. For people who are new and may not know, how can they connect with you, uh, get in touch with what you're doing, and anything you want to plug that people can support or whatever have you?
Well, a few things.
Please.
So my main kind of is Instagram, of course, the black underscore therapist. That's the black underscore therapist. I have another passion which is radio. I used to have a radio show back in college. Um, so I'm on the Jamal Bates morning show on Mondays, for Man Mondays, and I do a segment talking about mental health for Black men. So I give little tips and gems and things like that. So that's every and that he's on the in Augusta, Georgia, and South Carolina. But you could tune into the jamalbatesmorningshow.com for more information about that. And then I have us in April 2022, I had in collaboration with Shanika Pickens from Adelphi University, I had my first Black male mental health conference. I was super excited about that. That was a dream of mine. So it was a panel of all Black male therapists and educators, and we had breakout rooms, just all related to Black men topics. And I'm gonna have the next one next year, April of next year. So those like and subscribe and all other stuff. Follow on the Black Therapist for more information about that. That's a life changing event in New York City, and it's
Okay.
open to everyone, but it's catered to black males.
That's what's up. I I don't know
That's
if I
it.
told you, I'm in Jersey, so that's not a far drive.
Oh, okay. You gotta
Yeah,
pull
yeah,
up,
yeah.
man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have to come through and definitely support. Um, was there more that you wanted to plug? Please, I want to make sure you got it.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, no more plugs. I'm tired. No, I don't need to be doing nothing else.
I understand that. I understand
I,
that. Um, I want to ask you our final question, and um, if if you were given three wishes, three liberatory wishes, and this is open ended, that you believe could change liberation for Black and Brown folks, like if we had these three things, it would ultimately change where we're going. What would you wish for?
wow. No, usually I'm never stumped. That one, I would say, end of racism,
Hmm.
just against blacks. Like, they're like, what? What's that?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
for black people, end of racism. Um, to be united,
Hmm.
100%, unapologetically united would be my
Absolutely.
third. Wow. The phone a friend or something.
um. Well,
So I
I think
think of
about
the
your
third
work.
one.
I think about your work with mental health. I think about,
Mental
for example,
wellness.
yeah,
Yeah,
mental
well,
health.
because I've been thinking about that. But you're right. I've been thinking about that because you know why I kind of lumped it together and I did it aware because of how racism impacts our mental
Yeah.
health
Yeah.
and
That's huge.
ability to unite, right? So I really lumped them together because I'm like, if there was racism, I black people wouldn't go through stuff.
Mm.
voice
Yeah.
touch to us mentally.
Yeah. Yeah. We could leave it there and come back whenever we connect again. I'll ask you for that third one.
All
Yeah,
right,
man.
I'll give you time.
Yeah. 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 No, I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate your time this evening and carving out space. People may not know because they see the production here, but like we were fumbling around trying to make sure it was working. And I appreciate you creating space and being diligent about that thing because I know people who would have been like, yeah, nah, I'm good. If it ain't working out, I'm a piece and do what you got to do. So thank you for creating space for this
Right,
and,
yeah,
and making this conversation happen, brother. I really do appreciate it.
right. But that's part of supporting, your brother. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I I went to the black. I just came off of the Black Men's conference at Black Enterprise Magazine. I spoke at the BXL, which is a phenomenal conference. It was in Maryland at the Gaylord Hotel, and
Mm,
man, I left there just even more um, engaged and just I just feel more inspired as a black man, and definitely to support and uplift my brother in doing their thing. You know what I'm saying? So I'm saying if I could support, I'm gonna do that. Suppose whatever you do, like that's what we was talking about. They was talking about at the conference, like how what can you leave, and that was kind of the question people was asking. What can you do differently when you leave here? And that's a big question I always ask too when leaving conferences and stuff. And it's like turnkey to information. It just takes one. It takes one person, one brother to support lift his brother, and then you do that to someone else in return. Imagine how the change that could make. You feel me? So just
absolutely.
that, you know what I'm saying? It's like I'm gonna try to make it happen, and that's how others support their people,
Absolutely.
and we powerful. Like I love being a black man. You understand? I don't know anything else, but you know what I'm saying. I love it and I embrace it. You know what I'm saying. So it's like when you love yourself, you share that love with somebody else. That's it.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. And then, like you said, man, love will promote healing. Love will promote wellness. Love will promote true community. When I make your problem my problem, love will promote our flourishing, and that's the goal of liberation, man. Isn't just so that we. It isn't so that we just exist outside of oppression, but we ask ourselves who we will be without it, and we keep dreaming bigger and and what would it be if it weren't for oppression? Okay, cool. Now let's dream beyond that, and let's really aspire
Mhm.
to get to that place. And so, yeah, man. Like I said, brother, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for just connecting. And for those that are watching, we're definitely going to put his information in the show notes. Connect with my brother. He's doing amazing work. And this is what we do here over at the lab. We connect with dope, brilliant people. And through interviews and insights, we want to build disruptive educators who change the world. And so that's our time. And thank y'all so much for tapping in. We'll see you next time. Peace, y'all.
Peace.